Welcome back to the Tank Guide Life podcast, a product of Fish Keeping Life Co. We are your guides here to help you navigate the science behind a thriving aquatic ecosystem.
And it is that time of year, isn't it? The holidays are over, and a lot of you are probably looking at a nice little stack of gift cards.
Mm-hmm. The Amazon, the Higger, maybe the local fish store card.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Or, maybe you got that one really big box from a family member who means well, but might have gotten you a piece of gear that's, let's just say, a little mismatched for your setup.
I know that feeling. It's this high energy time where you want to upgrade, but it's also, honestly, a pretty high risk time for your tank. You've got the funds, the impulse is there to do a huge overhaul.
Yeah.
But if you don't plan it out, that impulse buy can be the very thing that destabilizes the beautiful, mature system you've spent months getting just right.
That's it. That's the whole reason for this conversation today. We're not here to just, list off products. You can find our top picks on thetankguide.com/year. Today is about a guided explanation. It's about how to choose, how to size, and how to upgrade your gear safely without wrecking your tank's biology. We want to help you turn those gift cards into smart, fish-safe investments.
We're basically pulling back the curtain on the why behind the gear guide. Why we recommend what we do, why our sizing rules can sometimes feel a little, conservative.
And why sometimes the best thing you can buy isn't the flashiest new gadget, but a simple, redundant safety feature that just prevents a catastrophe.
It all comes back to the science, applying those same core principles we use for stocking and water chemistry, but for the actual hardware.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start there with that foundational mindset. Before anyone even clicks add to cart, we really need to internalize this core philosophy from Fish Keeping Life Co. Gear supports biology. It never, ever replaces it.
That is the #1 rule.
Yeah.
It is the absolute inviolable truth of this hobby. It's so easy for beginners to see a tank as just, glass and a pump and lights.
The hardware.
Right, the hardware. But they forget it's a living biological system. The real-life support is being done 24/7 by microscopic colonies of bacteria, the gear, the filters, the heaters. All that stuff is just there to keep the environment stable for those bacteria and, by extension, for the fish.
So when you think about it that way, stability just has to be the top priority. It's stability first, then reliable function, and then way, way down the list you can start talking about brand names or, Wi-Fi features.
Fish welfare governs everything. And this is exactly why our stocking models on the site use what we call intentionally conservative bioload estimates. We bake in a margin of safety.
And we apply that same logic to the equipment.
The exact same logic.
Yeah.
Which brings up that debate, right? Why is bigger, within reason, almost always safer? Why do we push for that conservative sizing?
Yeah, in a world that's all about efficiency, why not get the thing that's perfectly optimized for your exact tank size?
Because an aquarium is not a predictable system. It's alive. It fluctuates. So when life is involved, that safety margin isn't just nice to have. It's essential. Think of it like a biological cushion.
Okay.
If you have a 20-gallon filter on a 20-gallon tank, it might work perfectly on day one. But that's when it's brand new, perfectly clean.
It's like a theoretical maximum.
The absolute theoretical max. Now, fast forward a few months, the sponge is a little clogged. There's biofilm on everything, restricting the flow. Maybe you overfed a little one day.
Or the power flickers for just 5 minutes.
Exactly. That quick power outage starves the bacteria of oxygen. Suddenly, your filter's effective capacity isn't 100% anymore. It drops. Maybe it's now only operating at 70 or 80% of what your tank needs. And now your system is stressed.
Right. But if you had that oversized filter, say one rated for a 40-gallon on that same 20-gallon tank.
Now you have a huge buffer. Even when the flow drops by 30%, you're still running at 100% of the required capacity for your tank's bioload. That margin for error is what keeps your bacterial colony stable and protects your fish from those dangerous parameter swings.
So it's not a luxury, it's a risk mitigation strategy. It's proactive.
It's insurance.
Okay, so speaking of buying, we have to be upfront about the reality here. A lot of people got gift cards for Amazon or for brands like Higger.
Yeah, and transparency here is key. The gear guide on our site does link to products you can find there. That's where people are shopping, and that's where your gift cards are going to work.
But the recommendations themselves aren't driven by that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
To be crystal clear, our recommendations are based purely on our own testing, on observed reliability, and on these conservative sizing rules we're talking about. It's not about compensation. If a piece of gear doesn't meet our stability standards, it doesn't make the list, period.
So if we recommend something like Seachum Prime later on, It's because the chemistry is superior for keeping your fish safe.
It's because it's the right tool for the job, providing the highest level of safety and reliability. End of story.
Okay, let's get into the gear walkthrough then. If that safety margin is so important, where do we need it the most? I'd argue it's the heater.
Oh, without a doubt. It's the one piece of equipment that, when it fails, can kill everything overnight.
It maintains thermal stability, which is vital for biology, but it's also just this potential catastrophe sitting in your tank. So what's the baseline rule, the starting point for sizing?
The baseline, and we keep this conservative on purpose, is right in our quick answer section on the site. 5 watts per gallon. That's your absolute starting point.
5 watts per gallon.
That's generally enough to raise your tank temperature about 5 to 10 degrees above a normal, climate-controlled room temperature.
So for a standard 20-gallon tank in a living room, you're looking at a 100-watt heater. That seems pretty straightforward.
It is, for a stable room. But what about the edge cases? What if your tank is in a chilly basement or a drafty room where the ambient temp drops into the low 60s?
Then that 100-watt heater is going to be running constantly, just struggling to keep up.
Exactly. In those situations, we often suggest doubling the wattage. So for that 20-gallon tank in a cold room, you might actually want a 200-watt heater.
Okay, wait. That brings up the next question. If we oversize our filters, is it bad to intentionally oversize a heater, even in a stable room? Maybe put a 150-watt in a 10-gallon just so it recovers temperature faster after a water change.
That's a great question. And the answer is, it's generally safe if the heater is working perfectly. The problem, the massive risk, is that every single internal heater relies on a submerged thermostat.
The component that tells it when to turn on and off.
Right, and that little component has one primary, absolutely catastrophic failure mode.
The thermal runaway.
The thermal runaway is when that thermostat fails and gets stuck on, it just keeps heating and heating. And because it's submerged, it doesn't stop.
So if you have that 200-watt heater in a 20-gallon tank and that happens,
you're done. Within hours, the water temperature will reach lethal levels. It's what we call cooking your fish. It's grim, but it's the reality of that failure.
That is genuinely terrifying. And there's no fixing it in the moment. You can't do a water change fast enough to counter that. So how do you mitigate that risk, especially if you took the advice and got the higher wattage heater for a cold room? You've now amplified the potential danger.
And this brings us to what might be the single best use of those holiday gift cards.
Yeah.
The key teaching point is this. Temperature controllers are about redundant safety. They are not a convenience item.
This is the insurance policy. I think of it like a circuit breaker in your house. It's the backup that stops a disaster when the main system fails.
Perfect analogy. A controller, like the Inkbird models we recommend, is a second, completely independent thermostat. You plug your heater into the controller's outlet.
Okay.
Then the controller has its own temperature probe that you put in the tank, totally separate from the heater's electronics. You set the controller to, say, 79 degrees.
Right.
If your main heater's internal thermostat fails and sticks on, the moment the water temp creeps past 79, the controller's probe senses it and instantly cuts power to the heater.
So it interrupts the circuit externally. It doesn't have to rely on the faulty component inside the heater.
Exactly. It's a fail-safe. It's true redundancy. Without one, you are putting all your trust in a single, cheap, submerged electrical part to protect hundreds of dollars of livestock. With a controller, you eliminate that risk of thermal runaway. It should be considered non-negotiable.
And bringing it back to that core value of stability, stable temps aren't just about avoiding a catastrophe, it's about day-to-day health.
Absolutely. Fish are cold-blooded. Their metabolism and their immune systems are directly tied to the water temperature. Constant fluctuations are a huge source of stress.
Which makes them vulnerable to things like H.
Precisely. And your beneficial bacteria are also temperature sensitive. Keeping that temperature rock solid with a controller means your biology is working at peak efficiency, your fish have robust immune systems. It's the foundation of a healthy tank.
Okay, let's move on to the engine of the aquarium, filtration. We talked about conservative sizing, and this is where it gets really practical because the numbers on the box, the gallons per hour, or GPH can be so misleading.
This is common question number 3. Why does everyone say to buy a filter rated for a bigger tank? And the reason is that manufacturer ratings are, let's call them optimistic.
They're based on perfect lab conditions.
Exactly. Maximum potential flow, no media inside, no tubes lifting water against gravity. It's a number that you will never, ever see in a real running aquarium.
Not after the first week, anyway.
Correct. the flow rate drops off pretty fast.
Yeah.
As your sponges and floss get clogged with waste and detritus, the pump has to work harder, and the actual turnover rate in your tank plummets.
So we need to plan for that drop. What's the recommended buffer? What should we actually aim for?
For a really robust system, you want to aim for a turnover rate of about 5 to 7 times your tank's volume per hour.
So for a 40-gallon tank, you'd want a filter that's rated for at least 200 to 280 GPH.
Exactly. Because when that filter gets a bit dirty and the flow drops by, say, 30 or 40%, you're still getting that crucial 3 to 4 times turnover you need for good gas exchange and waste removal.
This brings up a really critical distinction, something that trips up a lot of people: the difference between flow rate and biological capacity. Can you have too much filtration?
You can definitely have too much flow, but it is almost impossible to have too much biological capacity. That's the nuance.
Explain that.
Okay, so if you put a giant canister filter rated for 500 GPH on a little 10-gallon tank, you'll create a whirlpool, a washing machine.
Yeah.
That much current is incredibly stressful for most fish, especially long fin species like a betta or a gourami. They'll be exhausted just trying to stay in one place. That's too much flow.
But the filter itself, the box, has all that space for media, which is what we want.
Exactly. The biological capacity comes from the surface area of the media inside the filter. It's all about how much real estate you can provide for your beneficial bacteria to colonize. The more surface area, the bigger and more stable your bacterial colony.
So the smart move is to oversize the filter for its capacity, for the media volume, but then find a way to manage the output flow.
That is the perfect strategy. You buy the bigger filter model specifically because it holds more media. Then you just baffle the output. With a canister filter, you can often just turn down a valve. With a hang-on back, you can add a simple sponge over the outflow, or even better, install a spray bar.
A spray bar diffuses the flow over a much wider area.
Right, it reduces that jet-like current. And that slower, gentler movement of water over a huge amount of biological media is fantastic. It increases what we call dwell time, the amount of time the water is in contact with the bacteria, which gives them more time to process the ammonia and nitrite. Maximum conversion, minimum stress.
This whole idea of maximizing biological capacity leads us right into probably the biggest beginner mistake we see.
Oh yeah, the Cartridge Conspiracy.
The idea that you have to throw out your filter cartridge every month and buy a new one.
It's a profit-driven myth, plain and simple. And it is biologically devastating to your tank. When you throw away that cartridge, you are throwing away 90% of your beneficial bacteria.
The very colony you spent weeks or months establishing.
You're essentially forcing your tank to go through a mini-cycle crash every single month. It puts constant low-level stress on your fish as they're exposed to fluctuating ammonia and nitrate levels. The tank never gets to that mature, rock-solid state.
So what's the rule for maintenance?
Routine maintenance should never involve throwing away your media. It means gently rinsing your sponges or ceramic rings. And this is critical, rinsing them only in old tank water that you've siphoned out during a water change.
Because the chlorine in tap water will kill the bacteria.
Instantly. It's like hitting your filter with an antibiotic. So what's the upgrade? How do you use a gift card to fix this problem for good?
This is where filter hacking comes in.
This is the best investment you can make. You convert your filter away from those disposable cartridges and move to bulk media.
Tip 1 is the sponge conversion.
Right. Ditch the cartridge. Go buy a big sheet of high-quality biosponge foam. The Hager or Aquani options on the gear guide are great. You can cut it with scissors to perfectly fit every single inch of your filter box. This massively increases your surface area and gives you a permanent home for bacteria that you just rinse and reuse forever.
And tip 2 is media layering.
Yes. You want to optimize the path of the water through the filter. So first, it hits your mechanical media, that's your coarse sponge. It catches all the big particles, the poop, and uneaten food.
Protecting the more delicate stuff downstream.
Exactly. Then, after the sponge, the water flows through your high-porosity biological media. This is the really powerful stuff.
So things like ceramic rings or Siecha matrix, what makes them so much better than just a sponge?
It's all about the microscopic structure. They're incredibly porous. A sponge has a decent amount of surface area, but these engineered ceramic or pumice materials are like apartment complexes for bacteria. To put a number on it, some of this high-end media offers over 100,000 square feet of surface area per liter.
That's a staggering number.
It is. It means you can support an exponentially larger bacterial colony in the same physical space, which gives you that huge biological buffer against ammonia spikes.
So you have mechanical, then biological, and then you can add a final polishing step.
Right. Last in line, you can add a chemical polisher like Sechem Purigen. It's a synthetic polymer that pulls dissolved organic compounds out of the water, making it crystal clear without messing with your essential trace elements. That three-layer setup custom sponge, high-porosity biomedia, and a polisher will turn any basic filter into an absolute biological powerhouse.
Okay, so filtration is the engine, but the whole system runs on chemistry. Let's shift there. And this is a big one we hear from people who've just invested in a fancy new filter or light. Do I really need a test kit if my fish look fine?
This is non-negotiable. If you have money for only one thing after the holidays, it needs to be a Liquid Master test kit. The rule is simple. You cannot manage what you do not measure. By the time your fish looked sick, the problem has been happening for a while.
And why are we so insistent on the liquid dropper kits over the little paper strips? They seem so much easier.
The strips are easier, but they're not accurate enough where it counts. The liquid kits, like the API Freshwater Master Test Kit, are what we call lab style. They use chemical reagents that give you much more precise, high-resolution readings. Strips can be contaminated by humidity, and most importantly, they often can't accurately detect the very low, but still lethal concentrations of ammonia and nitrite.
So the takeaway is that testing is preventative. It's not for diagnosing a disaster, it's for preventing one.
100%. By the time you see your fish gasping at the surface, they might have already suffered permanent gill damage from ammonia that's been creeping up for days. You have to be able to benchmark your core parameters: ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and pH. If you can track those, you can see a problem coming a week away and fix it before it ever hurts your fish.
All right, let's talk about the mandatory chemical safety net. Water conditioner. I still see the question, what does it actually do?
It's mandatory, full stop. For every water change, your tap water has chlorine or chloramine in it, which are designed to kill bacteria.
Yeah.
If you put that straight into your tank, you will nuke your biological filter,
Feels the good, guys.
and it chemically burns the gills of your fish. So at a minimum, the conditioner neutralizes those disinfectants. But a high-quality one like Sechem Prime does something much more clever.
Right, it's not just a dechlorinator.
No, it's highly concentrated, which is great, but its real magic is that it also temporarily detoxifies ammonia and nitrite.
I remember you calling it a cheat code before. How does it actually do that? What's the chemistry behind it?
It's a chemical binding process. Prime's active ingredient binds to the ammonia molecule and converts it into a non-toxic inert compound called an aminium salt.
Okay.
And the brilliant part is, this non-toxic form is still recognizable and usable by your beneficial bacteria. So it makes the ammonia safe for your fish, but it leaves it available as food for your filter.
That's incredible. So it doesn't remove it, it just renders it harmless temporarily.
Exactly. The effect lasts for about 24 to 48 hours. It's a safety net. It gives your biological filter time to catch up and process an unexpected ammonia spike without your fish suffering any harm. It's invaluable, especially when you're first cycling a tank.
And speaking of cycling, what about those bottled bacteria products? Sechem Stability, Dr. Timms. Are they worth it?
They're excellent helpers. They introduce a live culture of the right kind of bacteria to get things started, and they can definitely speed up the initial cycling process.
But they're not a shortcut.
They are helpers, not shortcuts. You can't just dump in a bottle and add fish the next day. Cycling still takes time, 4 to 8 weeks typically, and you still have to be diligent with your testing. The colony still needs time to grow and establish itself.
Which is why we always come back to the 24-hour challenge.
That's the gold standard. Your tank isn't truly cycled until it can process a measured dose of 2 parts per million of ammonia all the way to 0 ammonia and 0 nitrite within a 24-hour period. That is the scientific proof that your biological filter is mature and ready for fish.
Let's talk about the gear that makes the tank look good. Lighting. This is an area where a gift card can lead to trouble. The common question is, I got a new powerful light and now my tank is covered in algae. Why?
The algae explosion. It happens because light is the easiest thing to overdose in a tank. And here's the key. Light will always drive algae growth before it drives plant growth if your other nutrients aren't perfectly balanced.
People often just look at the wattage or how bright it seems to their eyes.
Right, but wattage just tells you how much electricity it uses, and brightness, or lux, is measured for the human eye. What plants care about is PAR.
Photosynthetically active radiation.
Exactly. It's a direct measurement of the number of photons in the specific color spectrum that plants actually use for photosynthesis. It's the only metric that really matters for plant growth.
So for a stable, low-tech planted tank, what's more important, intensity or duration?
For 90% of tanks, consistency and duration are far more important than raw intensity. You need a timer, an absolutely consistent photo period of 8 to 10 hours a day.
And in terms of that PAR number?
For easy plants, your anubias, java ferns, crypts, you only need to target a PR value of about 30 to 50 at the substrate level. Once you start pushing past 60, you're getting into high-tech territory where you need CO2 injection to keep algae at bay.
So the big warning is that most tanks are dramatically overlit?
Massively overlit. It's the #1 cause of stubborn algae, like blackbeard algae. Often, the best and cheapest upgrade you can make is just turning your existing light's intensity down or putting it on a reliable timer. Gallants is everything.
Okay, speaking of cheap and effective, let's talk about the unsung heroes, the low-cost maintenance essentials. These are some of the best things you can buy with a small gift card.
This goes right back to that core value. Small habits win. You can have the best gear in the world, but if your maintenance routine is sloppy, you're going to have problems.
So what are the absolute must-haves for consistency and hygiene?
First, dedicated equipment. Buckets, siphons, towels that are used only for the aquarium. Cross-contamination from household soap or cleaning product residue is a silent killer.
Second, a good gravel vacuum.
A high-quality one, yes. You have to be physically removing waste. Vacuuming the substrate every week pulls out trapped detritus and uneaten food before it has a chance to break down into ammonia. It's manual bioload reduction.
You're taking strain off your filter before it even starts.
It's the most effective thing you could do. And third, gloves and labels. Gloves protect you and the tank. And clear, permanent labels on your chemicals and buckets just eliminate stupid mistakes when you're tired. It's all about making the correct habit the easy habit.
These tools are the foundation for the discipline that a healthy tank requires.
They are an investment in consistency, which is the ultimate currency for stability.
All right, we've covered smart shopping. Now let's spend some time on the big mistakes, the traps people fall into after they get that new gear. Mistake number 1, focusing on the shiny new specs over the proven existing biology in their tank.
Yes, this is the person who goes out and buys a brand new powerful canister filter and that same day takes out their old hang-on back filter that's been running successfully for 6 months.
And throws the old one away.
Throws it away. They're trading 6 months of a mature, stable bacterial colony for a plastic box with theoretical potential. You've just wiped out your entire nitrogen cycle.
A guaranteed crash.
Guaranteed. Any upgrade that involves your core biological filter, a new filter, new media, even changing out all of your substrate, it has to be phased in slowly.
But if I just spent $300 on a new filter, I really have to run my old ugly one next to it for a month. Isn't there a faster way to seed it?
There are 2 safe ways. The first is running them in parallel for at least 4 weeks, yes. That allows bacteria to naturally colonize the new media.
And the faster way?
The faster, smarter way is a wet transfer of mature media. You take the sponges or the ceramic rings out of your old established filter, give them a quick rinse in tank water, and put them directly into the trays of the new canister filter.
You're physically moving the bacteria colony.
You're moving the apartment building with all the residents still inside. It instantly seeds the new filter with a huge active colony. It's a massive shortcut, but you still need to monitor your parameters closely as the colony expands into the rest of the new media.
It maintains that biological continuity. Never start from zero. Okay, mistake number 2. This often happens right after someone upgrades their filtration. They use that new capacity as an excuse to immediately add more fish, and they rely on the dreaded inch per gallon rule.
Yeah. Our stocking advisor exists specifically to kill that rule. It is antiquated, simplistic, and just dangerously wrong. It completely ignores the real factors that create bioload.
Things like body mass, activity level, waste output.
The true bioload. I mean, think about it. A 10-inch Oscar has exponentially more body mass and a much higher metabolic rate than 10 1-inch neon tetras.
But the inch per gallon rule would treat them as equal 10 inches of fish.
Which is absurd. The Oscar produces a massive amount of waste and requires a huge amount of oxygen. The neons have a tiny bioload in comparison. Our stocking models account for that metabolic reality. You have to use a science-backed approach, not some outdated rule of thumb, or you'll overwhelm your brand new filter in a week.
And finally, mistake number 3. The one that often comes from a well-meaning but uninformed gift giver, buying live fish as a surprise.
This is, without question, the most dangerous gift you can give an aquarist. You just can't. Livestock has to be planned. The tank has to be ready.
Verified ready.
Verified. The owner has to test the water to confirm the cycle is stable, 0 ammonia, 0 nitrite. They have to research to make sure the new fish is compatible with temperature, pH, and the temperament of the existing fish. And most importantly, You have to quarantine,
Even from a good store?
even from the best store.
Oh.
Quarantine is non-negotiable. New fish are stressed from transport and often carry dormant parasites like ich or other pathogens. If you add them directly to your display tank, you risk wiping out your entire established community.
A 30-day quarantine in a separate tank is the only way.
It's the only safe way. It gives you time to observe, treat if necessary, and ensure the new fish is healthy before it ever meets your other fish. So if you want to give the gift of fish, give a gift card to the local fish store.
Let the owner do the planning.
Let them do it right. The joy is in the selection and the process, not the surprise contamination.
Well, that brings us to the end of this walkthrough. The goal today was really to help you navigate these post-holiday decisions, safely focusing on stability, on redundancy, and on long-term success.
Use those funds wisely. Invest in the foundational gear: a temperature controller, high-quality biological media, a reliable liquid test kit. Remember the philosophy: gear supports biology, it never replaces it.
We'd encourage you to head over to thetankguide.com/gear to compare what you have or what you're thinking of buying against these science-backed recommendations. And check your own tank against that 24-hour challenge benchmark before you add any new life.
No, we spent a lot of time today talking about filtration hardware, the media, all the tools that handle the aerobic part of the nitrogen cycle.
The part that requires oxygen,
Yeah.
converting ammonia to nitrite and nitrite to nitrate.
Right. And then we do water changes to remove that final product, the nitrate, which accumulates over time.
The weekly reset button.
Exactly. But there are some advanced hobbyists who try to eliminate water changes altogether. They do this by building very deep substrate beds, maybe 3 or 4 inches deep.
Okay.
The goal is to create oxygen-starved pockets at the bottom, an anaerobic zone. This is supposed to unlock a hidden third stage of the nitrogen cycle called denitrification, where bacteria that don't need oxygen convert that nitrate into harmless nitrogen gas, which just bubbles out of the tank.
So, in theory, your nitrates would always stay at or near zero, the ultimate low-maintenance system.
On paper, yes. But here's the question. Why do so many critics call this deep substrate practice a ticking time bomb? A system that is capable of instantly killing your entire tank if that deep anaerobic layer is ever disturbed.
That suggests there's another chemical being produced down there, something worse than ammonia.
Much worse. That zero-oxygen environment, if it becomes stagnant, can produce lethal quantities of hydrogen sulfide gas. It's the rotten egg smell. And if you accidentally dig too deep during maintenance, that toxic gas can be released into the water column all at once. So the debate is, how do you get the benefit of denitrification without creating the massive instantaneous risk of hydrogen sulfide poisoning?
The deep substrate debate. High risk, high reward. A perfect topic for another time. Thanks for joining us for this conversation on the Tank Guide Life podcast.
We'll talk to you next time.